about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So this article caught my eye. Apparently there's a study saying women who have bigger breasts actually sweat less in their bra. Now you would think, who would be spending money on a study like this? Well, I think it was a study where this was an incidental finding when they were looking at bras, and I guess, if certain bras would help in terms of certain workouts. And this new research was published in Experimental Physiology, and they investigated how bra size impacts sweat and therefore the performance of a sports bra. Now, for those of you who don't require a sports bra, it is necessary. Anytime I want to do anything extensive in terms of physical activity, I need a bra. And so if you're going to be on a trip or you're hiking and whitewater rafting and I'm going to be in a sports bra the whole trip. These sports bras, the tensile strength, I think they could probably hold up buildings. I mean, I am amazed at what these sports bras can do. Understand the elasticity could wear over time, so you need to upkeep. But honestly, these sports bras, I think they're stronger than a spider web. They are just amazing tensile strength. But they could also hurt you in terms of you getting rashes and things like that. And so postgraduate researcher in thermal physiology said over 85% of women deem a sports bra an essential piece of equipment for exercise. But it's really hard to find one that's comfortable and supportive. Their thought process was to look at how sports bras offer support to women and comfort to women, quote, of varying breast sizes, especially in hot conditions when women are more likely to experience issues like chafing and significant sweat accumulation in the bra. So they used a climate chamber in the university's ThermoSense lab. They used 3D scans to determine breast surface area, measuring sweat gland density. Yes, I would need a bigger climate chamber. Thank you. And then they used an iodine-infused paper that reacts with sweat, etc. And they looked at 22 women, age 18 to 55. And they looked at the bra triangle near the sternum. The women jogged for 45 minutes in 90-degree Fahrenheit heat. And then they found that large-breasted women presented fewer sweat glands, so they sweat less across their breast. So what does this mean, and why do people care? Well, I used to run, ski. The breast size did alter my center of gravity. And my activity, I think, was a lot more vigorous when I was a B cup than when I was a C and D and double D. I still run, but not to the degree that, again, as long as the sports bra and the duct tape and the spider web and, whatever tensile, garden hose, whatever I could use to keep them in place, but still. So one reason for this could be, maybe the activity is more vigorous when you are smaller chested, so you sweat less. But it could also be a defense mechanism because larger breasted women could be more prone to yeast infections. Now, I've been very grateful to never have that, but I credit it to the bras. You get infections or chafing when you get skin on skin. And maybe it's because I also had a lift. My doctor did a lift after I breastfed and the boobies changed. So they seem to be more youthful and not pressing or drooping against the skin. But breasts droop. Your ligaments weaken. And when breasts droop, you get more posterior breast skin on skin. And that could chafe. You could get something called intertrigo. where along the crease, there could be inflammation. And so powders can work, creams could work, cotton bras that have a little bit of nylon or spandex in there because you don't want 100% cotton because that could hold the moisture too much. So there's things that people could do. But I get women calling all the time with horrible rashes. They're bleeding because of breast chafing. And if these women are that uncomfortable, they don't want to wear a bra. And if you don't want to wear a bra, you're not going to exercise. And then if you don't want to exercise, you could get obese and then you could get larger breasts. So this is something that's important. The other thing, too, is I've had women that have been very, very concerned that when they do start to have rashes, that sometimes there's an odor. If you have yeast, that could have an odor. Well, then they don't want to go in for their mammogram because they're embarrassed. So breast health is important, but it also includes dermatological. From an evolutionary standpoint, it could be that larger breasted women could possibly, make a young child fearful of feeding. So you don't want to add more insult to injury with sweat on top of that. I don't know. Yeah. So I need to think about it because I always love to think about why something would be an evolutionary advantage or not. It could also be an endocrine dysfunction. Maybe the obesity alters the way you can release heat. Sweat glands are designed to help you regulate your body temperature and to help you release heat. And so maybe there's an alteration there. So, when we exercise, men, I get a lot of men now this time of year because of the humidity, having jock itch. Jock itch is a general term of having an itchy groin. Most often it is caused by yeast as well, a form of yeast, tinea. However, it could also be heat rash. It could be friction as well. One of my favorite treatments is Mycolog 2 or Lotrazone, where it has both an antifungal as well as a steroid. And I think that cream helps a lot, but you can't just rely on the cream. You need to let air get there. And it's hard to let air get there because you can't be walking around naked. But that's pretty important to do. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE-40. 855-SHARE-40.
Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our Fantasy Football Pocket Guide for Beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. So one of our listeners who wishes to be anonymous is older, has adult children, and is not close to them. And he thinks his children hate him. They're not close. He doesn't know anything about the grandchildren and how to mend that. It's difficult. It is. All right. I struggle with my family, but I am still the closest to my mother. My family had issues with my mom and dad with the way they raised us and disciplined us. But for me, honor thy father and mother, and out of duty, and because I understand now as an adult, wouldn't necessarily forgive, would never replicate it with my children, but I understand how mental health could have played a huge role, and I'm there. But the relationship is strained. It is. I love my mom, but it's not what you would see in the movies, although I really don't think any relationship is the way it is in the movies. And so if you are a child that doesn't speak to your parent, and I know children that don't, for that parent who's now a grandparent, who is starting to reflect on life and wanting to bond with the children, it could be hard. And, first and foremost, communication is going to be key. You might think it's one thing. Well, I spanked him. And the child might be like, no, it's because you cheated. You might, I didn't cheat. Mom said you did. No, I didn't. I never cheated. I mean, you need to kind of know what it is. Sometimes it's not just one thing. Sometimes it's a series of things. And sometimes it's not something you did. It's the kids don't like you. The kids really don't like you. You're their relative. They have to love you. It's like brothers and sisters. I'd never be your friend in school. You'd never be my roommate. I'd never date anybody like you. You're just not anybody I mesh with. Well, what do? Your family. And the family bond is a unique one. And it's an important one, especially if you have grandkids or other family members. And unfortunately, many of us throw that bond away. We waste it. Now, I had a relative that I tried to reconnect with. And this relative tried, but had, I think, a trigger from the past. And then completely broke down and then distanced themselves. Now, if somebody does have mental health issues, there's only so much you could do. If they're isolating themselves because you remind them of the past, and it might not be a past that you provided or you were involved in. Maybe there was a rape. Maybe there was a breakup. Or maybe that person has severe mental illness. Isolation is not just to you. And so you as a parent or as a person or as a friend need to also identify that. Are they isolating from you only? Or do they isolate from everybody? If they isolate from everybody, then you could maybe do some type of an intervention. Don't have to call it an intervention. Say, look, I want us to heal the bonds or heal the breaks of our bonds in the family, mend. We don't have to be over at each other's house all the time, but I would like to do baby steps and at least have a conversation once a month. Maybe once a year we see each other, but let's slowly do baby steps. Maybe we video, Skype, FaceTime. Let's slowly, try to be there for each other as a family. And that could be orchestrated by a family therapist, by a medical provider. I know it's really hard when people are across the country, but it's doable. If, however, it's just you, they get along with everybody in the family, but it's just you. Well, then why is that? Is it because you beat them? Is it because you called out, you didn't suck up to them? You were honest with them and you know them more than others and they want to still do this charade, but and everybody else goes along with it, but you don't. What is it? And identify that with them and have a conversation with them. Now, let's say you weren't the best parent. Okay. Find out exactly what is their definition of that. Is it that you were always working? Is it that you roamed around with other people? Is it because you beat them? But you need to have that conversation. And then if you were in the wrong, you need to apologize. The relationship can't mend if you don't apologize. And let's say, you worked a lot and you did it to support them. And you're like, we were starving. I know you didn't see me, but I had to hold a job. That's kind of what, you were supposed to do. Well, how you would start out is, again, apologize for what you are guilty of, but don't take responsibility for something that you weren't guilty of. So, I really regret not getting to see you grow up. I really regret not being able to be with you and be at all your games. I didn't get to explain to you. I don't want people thinking I liked working. I hated it. I hated every minute of being away from you. But with finances, I made the decision at the time to work. And I didn't know how not to because I was so afraid we'd lose our job and would starve. That doesn't negate the fact that I wasn't there for you. And I'm sorry. I'd like to be there for you now. And, I had that talk with my boys. They were actually shocked, going, Mom, we never really noticed that. And I go, then why else are you rude to me? I thought it was that because I didn't beat you. Like, no, we're fine. We're good. We love you. I never noticed you gone. In fact, I preferred it. But for me, I did. I made sure I had that talk with both my boys going, I was so overwhelmed running a medical office and being there for the patients and putting patients first that I let my time with you slip. I missed your games and I wasn't there for you. And I want to make that up. Anytime you want me, I'm here. If you don't want me, that's fine. But I really regret that I didn't spend more time with you guys growing up. Put that out there. Now, if you beat them with the belt, if you had a bad day at work and you beat the kid, you really need to apologize for that. You can't delay. You have to. Say, there is no excuse for the way I punished you. You didn't deserve it. I wish I could take it all back. I don't know if I could ever make it up to you. But for however many years I'm on this earth still, I want to make it up to you in any way I can. Because it was wrong. And I want to be here for you and help in any way. And I know you may never forgive me. And you should never forget. But I'd like to try and move forward and, be as close to you as you'll let me. There's only so much we could do. I'm of the type of mindset where I always forgive, but I never forget. I'm very forgiving. It's what we're taught in religion. And I could move past it. And it's probably because as a physician, I know people have bad days. They have mental illness. They have impulses. And, anybody who's ever wronged me, I've always forgiven. And I've let them know that. I'm not going to forget. I'm not going to trust you. I know what you're capable of. But if we have to move on and we have to get a job done, I'm going to, be the better person. And I'm going to, not hold a grudge. There are some individuals who said, no, you do me wrong once, we're done forever. If that's their thinking, there's only so much you could do. We have people in our lives that we want to be with, but if they don't want to be with us, there's really not much you could do. They're lost then, especially if it wasn't your fault. But another thing that a lot of people don't realize is sometimes somebody doesn't want to be around you because you remind them of somebody else. If they never got over mom's death or a parent's death or a sibling's death and you remind them of that, it doesn't matter how wonderful you are. That's why a therapist can kind of help mend that. 1-877-Daliah. Hi guys, Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making this show happen. And big thanks to Daniel, our producer. So one of the reasons why I haven't been a big fan of the government writing off student loans is it's the colleges that should pay, not the taxpayer. The colleges got the money. The colleges charged exorbitant rates. Why is the government giving the colleges what they want and then spanking us taxpayers? Not cool. You want college debt bought down? Go to the colleges that got the money and ask them to pay it back. That's how I feel on that. The kids should never have been raped financially for some of these. There's medical students being charged $50,000 a year for tuition. And that doesn't include living and all the other expenses. That's ridiculous. For an education that is not better than college run schools. So I think college prices are getting ridiculous. But another reason why I am not a fan of erasing college debt is now you're changing the definition of debt. And you're teaching young adults and other adults and Americans in general that you don't have to pay your debts. Now, Game of Thrones taught us the Lannisters always pay their debts. That was probably one of the last times you saw any sort of narrative of if you have a debt, you pay it. Well, now we have people going, well, all right, COVID changed things I don't owe. And I got to be honest, even me, I fell for it a little bit. Going, wait a second. What if they write off home mortgages? What if we don't pay each month? We still did. Because I wanted to make sure the banks got their money and I didn't want to owe. But what I didn't want to happen is where a lot of Americans are feeling right now, where they signed the last check to pay off their student loan debt in 2019, just to find out they never had to do that. And they could have still had money in the bank because the government promised to write it off. And so I didn't want to be the person that was still paying when you could get free money. Who does? But I still paid. And one of the reasons why I still paid is I was like, you know what? The bank will want their money. There's no way a bank will survive. There's no way a government will be able to pay off everybody's mortgages. So keep paying. Well, you guys are going to hear of a term called zombie mortgage. The Daily Mail is reporting that a nurse who had a family home of 17 years, lost it because she thought the debt was not going to be collected. Back in the housing crash, 2008, going into the recession that extended well into the 2010s, millions of Americans took out second mortgages on their homes, sadly defaulted. But lenders didn't pursue foreclosure because the home price crash made it unlikely they would recoup the money. A lot of homeowners thought the debt was canceled. We also saw this during post-COVID, where people thought, well, you know what? There's this big call for debt to be canceled. What are they going to do? So the forgotten mortgages, they were dormant home loans that the owners thought were canceled. Well, these dormant home loans came back to life, hence the term zombie mortgage. According to Daily Mail, the forgotten mortgages had been bought for pennies on the dollar by debt collectors who had patiently waited for the housing prices to rise to record levels. That would make it more worthwhile now to chase the money. Yet there's retroactive fees, interest. So not only do you have debt on the house and your payments, but also all the fees and interest. Many homes get foreclosed on. Carrie McDonough from Quincy, Massachusetts, thought her second mortgage was written off until she stumbled into a foreclosure auction on her front lawn. She's a registered nurse, had owned the house for 17 years. She reported this to NPR. She raised 2 children in the house. She purchased the house in 2005, took out an 80-20 loan. So she had 2 mortgages, one covering 80% of the value, the other 20%. 2 years later, her first mortgage was adjusted. Monthly payments went $700 a month higher. She was able to get her loan modified to lower the interest rate to make it affordable. Mortgage company told her that part of the modification, the second mortgage had been forgiven. She stopped getting statements on the second mortgage, assumed it was dead. 2022, a group of men gathered on her driveway for a foreclosure auction. Now, if she said that the first mortgage company said to ignore the calls, that it was most likely fraud for people demanding money. But it actually wasn't. The second mortgage got sold to a company within a batch of 600 others, was never written off. Then she got evicted. Now, I don't know much about mortgages and homes, but we have in the past 10, 15 years, and especially in the past few years, have changed the definition of debt. And now people are waiting for this presidential campaign to see who's going to write off what. Now, former President Trump said he will not tax on tips. I think that could be a very, very good move. But it could also spank us later. When I was a waitress, I made, I think, about $2 an hour. They wouldn't pay a minimum wage because you lived on the tips. So I needed those tips to live on. I still pay taxes on them. You still reported them. And, any tips by credit card also got, I think, reported and taxed. And however, I just wanted to do everything by the book. But boy, would it have been nice for me to keep, 20%, 15%, whatever tax bracket I was in at the time. And so that could really help people. On the flip side, it could cause employers to change things to pay us as a tip. Mandatory tip. And the tip culture can go crazier than it already has because that's non-taxable money. And if somebody prefers to get the tip over their wage, one, we might get some better customer service, but I think we might see more mandating and we might see more tricks like we've been seeing now, where 18% is not really 18%. It looks more like 25% when you do the calculation. So I'm a little nervous about that. But Biden and every other Democratic candidate in the last presidential primary was saying, look, guys, we'll write off student debt. Maybe we need to write off mortgages. Maybe write off medical debt. That's a problem. Because some people might forget, thinking, okay, well, it was written off. That's a thing. Debt is never written off. That was never a thing. Somebody owes. Somebody got spanked. If you owe money, it's very rare that the person you owe the money to is no problem, all good. Like medical debt. Well, I'm not going to pay my doctor bill. They'll be fine. Yeah, these doctors were so fine that they closed down. I closed my office. People wouldn't pay their bills. I understand it was a recession. Don't let anybody tell you the recession ended in 2009. It went way into 2015 because people wouldn't pay their bills. They couldn't pay their bills. Their $20 bill, their $30 bill, their $100 bill. People racked up a lot of bills. They're not paid. How am I supposed to pay my staff? So I closed down and went to teach. It always hurts somebody. And then it affects you later on. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH.
Considered by most, optimized curcumin is one of the few bioavailable and highly absorbable curcumin products on the market. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch. Since most chronic diseases have inflammation, our optimized curcumin seems to be a perfect addition to any nutritional program. It makes sense to me that preventing or reducing inflammation is a key component to our overall health. The Mayo Clinic found that curcumin can decrease swelling and inflammation, has antioxidant properties, and research suggests that curcumin can prevent cancer, or at least slow the spread of cancer, and in many instances make chemotherapy more effective. It protects our healthy cells even from radiation. TotalWellness.com, where we help you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So we are being told that there is an increase in earthquake activity surrounding Mount St. Helens, and that it might be recharging. I don't like that term, recharging. That makes me kind of nervous, like it's getting ready or reloading. But they say there's an increase in earthquake activity. It's been in small magnitude quakes, but an increase nonetheless, according to the Cascades Volcano Observatory. They said over the past several months, small magnitude earthquakes have been located at Mount St. Helens. The seismicity is similar to what we observed at this volcano from July to December 2023. No significant changes have been observed in other monitoring parameters, and there was no change in alert levels at this time. Still remains normal, background levels of activity. But one post by the USGS Volcanoes thread said the seismic activity seen recently could mean the arrival of additional magma, known as a process called recharge. They say small magnitude earthquakes located beneath Mount St. Helens at depths well below sea level are generally thought to be associated with pressurization of the magma transport system. One cause for this pressurization is the arrival of additional magma, a process called recharge. This, according to the Cascades Volcano Observatory, that magma slowly rises through the lower crust, accumulates in a reservoir about 2.5 to 6 miles below the sea level. Recharge events can occur when magma enters the upper reservoir and increases stresses that lead to earthquakes. So they are going to continue to monitor the activity. I'm sure people in Washington are concerned, Portland as well. But so far, so good. But, we know that volcanoes will, resume activity. I was fortunate enough to be able to fly over the Iceland volcano. And it was very, very cool that I was on Icelandic Air. And I'd asked the flight attendant, are we going to be able to see it? Which window? Because luckily the flight wasn't that full, so I could move. And he said, you're on the right side. The pilot is going to fly south of it, so you'll be able to see it. And it was a lot of smoke. You couldn't necessarily see the magma from being, thousands of feet in the air. But, it's a volcano that has been active before. And, sadly, there's a city nearby. And, people had to be evacuated when it did erupt. But, when you have a volcano, it isn't just, burst and done. So obviously it's something that needs to be watched. So we'll keep you posted. The bird flu outbreak. I know we haven't talked about it a little bit. Still very much present. And I think found on more dairy farms. They say more than 3 years into a worldwide outbreak of bird flu, they are saying that the virus is continuing to expand in the U.S., according to USA Today. This is going to cause huge impacts on food production and animals. Over 80 million chickens, thousands of wild birds, and dozens of mammal species, including a polar bear, have been infected. Now it's running rampant among dairy cows. Cows. Bird flu affecting cows. This is why health experts are nervous. This has turned up in 94 herds across 12 states since March. The latest animal to test positive was an alpaca on an Idaho farm. According to Juliana Lenoche, National Coordinator for the Department of Agriculture's Wildlife Disease Program, it's gigantic, the scope and scale of the presence of the disease. Now, the scale will affect us on egg prices, on chicken prices, on things from dairy farms. And poultry farmers and dairy farmers are now going to have to spend extra money and take extra measures to ensure that their products don't have bird flu. Now, what we have seen with some random inspections is viral particles, not necessarily active virus in supermarket milk. But when the supermarket milk was tested, they found remnants of the virus in the milk. So what does that mean? Well, that means that the virus went from a bird to a cow, persisted in the cow long enough for it to make its way into the mammary system and the milk. The pasteurization process is supposed to do a really good job at killing pathogens, and it looks like it did work because there were dead virus particles, pieces of virus. And the pasteurization is where you heat it to a very high level and then you rapidly cool. So there's that extra element of killing a pathogen that doesn't handle heat, cold, or the rapid change of the temperature. And so where we're concerned is we don't want this hitting humans. Humans have been infected with bird flu. But the only reason why we are not in a pandemic state like we were with COVID is because we don't believe a human can give another human the bird flu. There was one case of a father-daughter. I don't know what they ever concluded with that because they both had it and maybe they both were exposed working on the farm together. But if this bird flu has been able to persist, cause the death of millions of birds, make its way to alpacas, polar bears, cows, be able to make its way into the breast milk, maybe finding a way to be transmissible through breast milk between animals, it's getting smarter. That's what that means. It's H5N1, and it has spread to 6 continents since the first detections in Europe and Asia back in 2020. It has been reported across North and Central America, most of South America, and has been found on every continent. It turned up in Antarctica last fall, raising alarm about potential consequences for some of the world's most beloved birds, the penguins. So when bird flu hit Antarctica, whoa, people freaked out. Don't be hitting the penguins. Leave the penguins be. And so this one is lasting a little longer, more widespread. I think they have found it in every state except Louisiana and Hawaii. And you know Hawaii is hoping it doesn't come that way. And so there's going to be restrictions on, obviously, animals, coming onto the island. There has been 14 million turkeys and 80 million chickens, including 71 million egg layers. These chickens and turkeys get killed when the flock tests positive. They want to do that to prevent human infection. But as a result, turkey prices have gone up, chicken prices have gone up, egg prices have gone up. I was at a restaurant, and the chicken dish was $35. I'm like, really? $35 for a piece of chicken? Come on. So, infected mammals have been found in 31 states. The greatest number of infections found in foxes, mice, striped skunks, mountain lions, kitty cats, meow, and harbor seals. So, a harbor seal, that means they're getting it from a wild bird. It means this virus is able to now go cross species. That's concerning. But right now, human risk is still low. They said since it arrived, there were 4 people who tested positive in the U.S. All were exposed to the virus on farms. In the first case in 2022, the worker was culling infected poultry from the farm. All 3 patients this year, however, were exposed to dairy cows. 2 had pink eye. That was their only symptom, was some pink eye. The 3rd experienced some upper respiratory symptoms. And nobody in the U.S. have ever died from it. So this is a good sign. But still be careful. And I wouldn't drink raw milk. As long as dairy is properly processed and pasteurized, it should be fine. Considered safe for now. But they want you to cook your ground beef all the way through. None of this sunny side up eggs. Cook eggs all the way through because it could take care of any remnants of the virus that could be in the eggs. 1-877-Daliah. Don't go away.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.